Hello everyone, and welcome back to chapters 5 through 8 of the Nuzlocke run. We're continuing on from part 1, which can be found here if you missed it. So, the very first thing is we're in a new chapter. So what's the first thing we do? Is we convert our next Digimon, which in this case turns out to be a Biyomon. Then it's off to continue the main story, where it's the first infiltration of Kamishiro Industries. Working together with Yuko now, who's an interesting addition to the team. So once we've hacked our way in and gotten into the mainframe, it's time to get started. It's not a very long time before you get up to scanning the secret data and able to complete the supposed mission. The very strange indications of having a digital sneeze of Hachun. And once Yuko and Jimmykin enter the fray, it's time for the first boss battle of the chapter. Second battle with Jimmykin, and what's the worst that could happen, right? So the second battle with Jimmykin is not much different than the first. I mean, he's got two Blue Marimon now, which we fought Blue Marimon before, right? So how hard could it be? We move along a bit into the fight, and like many bosses in this game, they have a little bit of HP, but they're not really anything too scary. I mean, because we're using a rookie against ultimates, I mean, the Biyomon is getting hurt quite a little bit, so you do have to pay a little bit of attention to this fight. But all in all, it's going along very smooth, nothing too special to see here, just trade blow for blow, long battles, yep. I mean, and that is when it happened. Buff up. Oh my god! There we go! Oh! Oh no! Rordrik's dead! That's right. Sistermon's abysmal defense had finally caught up to us. Rordrik suffered the consequences for it. 2/3 of his health gone and one hit from a Blue Marimon. And this is the point in the run where I decided that the Platinum Sukamon and the Sistermons for a Nuzlocke run were no longer worth it. They were just too much of a risk. And thus, our first Digimon was dead. Moved on to Chapter 6. Which means, once again, time for another new Digimon. And to put poor Rordrik to rest, he must go into the box, never leave again. I did remember to eventually go back and take off the small HP attachment that he had on him. You can still loot their corpse. And then Tsunamon joined the party. And since we gained enough levels from that battle, Biyomon became a Kabuterimon as well, adding to the team and finally getting, you know, a somewhat reasonable team going, and needing another vaccine type to replace the Rordrik that we just lost. Ah yes, here's where we actually took Rordrik out of the bank just so we could loot his corpse. Moving through the story, we then run into just one of my favorite lines in the entire the entire game is "Die, stalker, die." This whole scene is a bit interesting. Talking to everyone here at the forum, you make sure you talk to everyone, or else the lady at the bookstore will not spawn. I learned that the hard way when we were doing this run. And once you have talked to her, then you can unlock talking to Arata, who will also help you. And then you can go into Kowloon, find the information out in Kowloon that you need. And thus you enter into the first battle with Wisemon. Once again, he's just another random boss that's in the middle of everything. He's not even a full-fledged boss, really. He just doesn't do enough damage to be scary enough to be really put in that category. He's just another one that gives you a decent bit of experience. Make sure you're ready for the real fight with him that's coming up later. Then, once you've dealt with Wisemon, you are able to then move on and find the digital shift. Ooh, fancy graphics. We're entering the digital world! No! Actually, you very rarely enter the digital world in this game. It's very strange. And you discover the next strange place that is the digital shift. Now, a good thing to note when you go in here is you find Suido again. And Suido is actually a very good shopkeeper because you cannot buy HP Spray Cs anywhere else in the game at that point. So you should probably pick up a few while you're there. Moving through and training in the area, Sunamon became max level as well. And thus, when I returned to the lab, I was trying to decide on what to digivolve the Sunamon into. Eventually, I decided to not go with Gabumon because in the next battle against Wisemon, he would be pretty useless, so I wanted another virus type. I then decided to go through and might as well use the farm expansions I gotten at this point to expand my farm. Mostly at this point, it's really just to help the training in case I ever decide to actually do any training in the farm, because it's unlikely that the developer know-hows are really going to get in there and help me. So this is when I first decided to put the Black Gabumon in there and tried my first time developing, and realized, oh my gosh, with so few Digimon, it takes 2 hours to develop anything. So it's very difficult to find it worth it. So I continued to grind in the surrounding area in order to get some experience before taking on Wisemon himself. Now this battle had me a little worried, to be honest, because I know in some other playthroughs I've seen Wisemon giving people a lot of trouble, and Wisemon being an intelligence-based Digimon, you just never know just how hard they're going to hit. Like, he did over 1,000 damage just to Chrysalimon over there, so I knew he wasn't one to be taken too lightly. After all, we just came off a boss fight that did kill one of my Digimon. So I wasn't about to completely pass him off. But as it turns out, he's got a little annoying things with magical reflecting, and he does have a little bit of healing that he can do, but absolutely none of it that actually makes that big a difference in the end. Just slowly whittle him down with your team as usual. And eventually you will come out triumphant. But the main part about this one is Wisemon, once you get past him, is only the first part of the boss. As immediately after, you jump into the Eater fight as well, which, again, is just another Eater fight at this point. You fought many of these before. Having the penetrating moves really helps a lot, but all in all, it's just another Eater. Be a little careful that you keep your Digimon fairly well topped off, because that Erode terminal will hit extremely hard if you have some Digimon that are anywhat under-leveled or anything. Such as right here, where that almost took down Kabuterimon in one hit. So just be a little careful, and you should have no problem getting through this fight. Especially once they lower their own stats enough, you can really use that to your advantage in order to get through. Once you've dealt with that Eater, then it is time to go ahead and help out this poor guy with his Lilymon problem, who just loves to keep taking selfies. She's not too difficult. She's another ultimate, so, you know, you have to be a little careful, but all in all, just have a couple of decent virus types, and as you can see, she has a very low defense, so just a few well-placed hits, and your Lilymon problem will be gone. Even got to bad manners her by actually beating her with Branch Drain, which is such a weak move. But I just had to. It was fun. So, once you've taken care of her, then it's time to move on to the boxing organization and their Gaomon problem, beating up the numerous Gaomon that are here. It's really kind of a puppy stomping. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Beating up on a bunch of rookies and getting your way through here. Like I said, I made sure to do all the side cases just to help get a couple levels, because I didn't really want to grind. So moving on and helping out your friend, Ryota, in order to get some part-time jobs, you eventually decide to pose the really silly fake ghost picture. There's absolutely no fighting to this whatsoever, except a little bit of running around in Kowloon, so nothing really to see here. Then, after this weird cutscene of failing to do your connection jump, which never comes up again in the entire rest of the game, finally working, you're continuing the main story, and then which leads you to going into the Metropolitan building, and once you're in there, finding another shift, and within finding yet another Eater fight. As per usual, Eaters are pretty durable, so you want to have some penetrating moves on you in order to get through some of that, but in general, they just got a lot of health and everything, so just keep yourselves topped off and just keep hitting them until they go down. This Eater in particular is not very tough. It's definitely one of the weaker ones in the game that you're going to fight, so nothing really to see here. It's too big a concern. Once the Eater has been defeated, then you're ready to move on, and I decided to add an island. Really, again, my idea for this island would be that if the other one's going to be used for developing, that one would eventually be used to train a couple Digimon. So then you move on to help out the record store, helping out the resident employee, and when doing so, you enter into the Edamon fight. Once again, Edamon's mostly just another one of these bosses that just kind of gets lost in the shuffle. He's really nothing that warrants any major concerns, really. Just slowly take him down, as usual. I mean, literally, I can't remember a single thing in this fight that really scared me in any way that I had to deal with at all. And then, once you're done with dealing with Edamon, we move on to what is the start of Chapter 7, the Demon Pilgrimage. This is one of the chapter names that I immediately recognize, because I remember the Demon Pilgrimage well. So, our next Digimon to be converted was a Goblimon, and since we're the start of the chapter, this is when we do it. Moving along and seeking out the Metal Thief, we then move on through Kowloon level 3 and gain access to Kowloon level 4 and all of the Digimon that can be found there. Running around on Kowloon level 4, we ran into our first new Digimon of this entire episode, is the Toy Agumon that became 100% that we can then realize. Soon after, we found Guillemon, who became the next Digimon that we will convert in many chapters from now. Though, finally being able to beat up some rookies and champions, you get a decent enough experience that Goblimon was able to reach max level while running around this area. Also, fighting enough of these battles, Gekomon also became one of the Digimon that we would convert. This was an excellent area for finishing off some Digimon that weren't 100% ready to Digivolve. So now that the Goblimon was max level, it was time to decide what they Digivolve into. I went with Cordramon because, well, if you can see from my icon and everything, I'm a bit of a dragon nut, so on top of Digimon, I love my dragons. Then we move on to beating up the guy who has information about the Metal Hunter. I did not remember this battle in any way, shape, or form, and as you will see in one moment, you will know exactly why, because there is absolutely no threat here at all. Just one shot the Bakumon and the Cherry Monsoon falls. Nothing really to worry about here again. I found a lot of normal mode was just a lot easier than I remembered. After playing through in hard mode so much, I didn't really do it much. But the cool thing about this fight is it got Rordrik to maximum level, so started my abilities to get to my first ultimate. Hearing about Sakura being kidnapped, or running away, I guess is more accurate, we were able to look into what I could become as an ultimate. The only real vaccine that was available to me was Rapidmon, so that's where I went. And finally, with Rapidmon, you can start to get some slightly better moves. Just, this line is not great for getting many moves in general. Then, with Ryota going off on his own trying to hunt down Sakura, you're able to come across this scene and intervene. So once again, this is a battle that I didn't necessarily remember all that much, because once again, this is about as tough as the previous fight was. It is over so quickly that it was a good chance for me to test out the power of my new ultimate. Seemed pretty good. Yeah, I was rather happy at that point with how the team was building and just how well the run was going. I've had my doubts about this run when we first started, but it really was coming together, and besides for the poor Nordic death, everything was going just fine. So with them defeated and getting the information on where the people were going on the pilgrimage, it was time to intervene. Thus we enter into our third and final confrontation with Jimmykin. Now as you can see, that Tomahawk Cruncher does over 2,500 damage to Agumon. Now I understand, Agumon has type weakness to Boltmon, but that is a scary amount of damage that he has, especially if you let him get any of his buffs off. So this is a fight that I was actually a bit nervous about, Just the sheer amount of damage that he can do. Especially because if you take down one of the guys on the side, that's generally when he decides to do the buff on the guy in the middle. But because the guys on the side were panicking me on top of that, I decided to take the chance and to take one of the guys down on the side before I dealt with Boltmon himself. For better or worse, that was my strategy. So, finally taking one of the guys down on the side, we knew it was time. We had to focus on Boltmon. We had to take him down as quickly as possible. That Can You Feel It buff is extremely powerful, as we saw with Sistermon. That is what ended up killing Rordrik. So, that was my strategy. I don't know, if you come into this battle with maybe some panic barriers, you can probably be safe enough to not have to deal with it. Though it turns out that Tomahawk Cruncher did nowhere near as much damage as I was fearing it would do. So, in all, it actually wasn't that scary of a fight once I saw that he didn't do enough damage. Of course, he can stack that buff, so you do need to be careful enough that you get rid of him before he can stack it up too much and become too big of a problem. But again, once I knew they couldn't do enough damage that I had to really worry, it was just keeping my Digimon topped off a little bit to make sure their health didn't run too low, and then just whittle them down little by little as we could. But once again, once we got past this fight, it was all the more just, how easy is normal mode? Is this really going to be that difficult of a challenge to actually finish the game anymore? I began to be a little concerned that this was just going to be too easy in general, that there was no real part of this challenge that was ever going to challenge me, because I wasn't going to do the post-game content and everything. It was just these bosses. And this is just cleanup duty on Jimmy Kin at this point. Don't want to, don't really need to use any more items, just using my bare minimum attacks to do damage. And finally, he falls, giving us the end to the pilgrimage. Now, for those of you who are wondering, the next fight with Faye is a fight that you cannot win. You are only having your poor Gabumon and Agumon fighting a Tiger Vespamon, and you do about as much damage as you should. Now, the only thing I really show this fight for in any way is to show that you can't die. There's no way that this even can taint the run or anything. It's just like you're in the tutorial. Your Digimon can't go below 0 hit points, so Agumon and Gabumon don't break the run in any way. So as soon as you're done there, you talk to Athena, who's really Minervamon, who's trying to help out one of the kids who's a bit shy and everything on a public forum. So, once you are discovered, it's time to fight. And the fight with Minervamon is much like many of the other fights here. It's not all that difficult. There is a bit of damage she can do with her signature move, but the entire time I fought her here, she didn't even use it. So there was nothing here to really impress me at all. While trying to take down another Mega, I kind of expected something to happen that would be a little impressive, but nope, she went down just about as easily as the rest. So, once you're done taking care of Minervamon, it's time to jump into the arcade and look into Grappleomon, who's messing with the top scores in games and angering the nerds. Oh no! So, once you find him within, you just took down a Mega, so moving on and trying to fight a Ultimate at this point, well again, it's just, you've already beaten tougher, so that there's no way that this should scare you in any way. And as such, even in the high tense Nuzlocke run, he's down in less than 2 rounds. It's really not anything that should concern you. And down it goes. I mean, yay, the main fights, they're worth a decent amount of experience, so you want to keep going through and doing all of these. And, give you some challenge, but it's just not a whole lot in general. Though do remember that in Chapter 7, you also unlock the ability to buy the D attachments for things that are not just HP and SP, so I made sure to pick up Attack Defense and a couple extra HP ones because I had the money at the time. So once you're done dodging some lasers that's actually part of the main quest, you're able to jump into one of the lasers in a risky move, and there you will find Tankmon. And Tankmon at this point, well, he's a champion. So, except for being, well, fairly tanky, because he, has is a machine that is durable, he really, again, presents no threat. And once again, real quickly, he is taken down. This story is kind of a sad one. So, that brings us to the final chapter of the episode, Chapter 8, No Stopping the Gale Girls. And I've played this game through 3 times now. Who the heck are the Gale Girls? Some of these chapter names make absolutely no sense at all. So, start a new chapter, you know what that means, time to convert a Digimon. This time, we get a Botamon. After that, it's time to help Nokia try and recruit a few new recruits for the rebels that she's trying to put together. So, going through, there's a couple of fights with the other tamers that you're trying to recruit and show them who's boss, and, well, it's really easy to show them who's boss. And very quickly, in doing so, Botamon became max level. After dealing with all of that, you then go see Arata, and you skip out on him because you saw an interesting point to go, and he has no idea what's going on, so you just say goodbye. Once he catches up to you again, you find yourself now in another digital shift, which is taking over the new region. I would try to remember the name of all the different regions in this game, but they're so very Japanese that they kind of escape me for the most part. So eventually, I decided to digivolve the Botamon into a Wanyamon. How? By randomly moving the cursor up and down until I figured out... until it landed on one. Because I really didn't know any Digimon I was really looking for at that time, so... And then the new area is pretty good with fighting some champions, so you are able to quickly gain yourself some max levels in your training little Digimon. So going back, I quickly decided that Ryudamon's cool. We need a Ryudomon, don't we? Yeah, I think we need a samurai dragon lizard thing. Yeah, he's cool. So I decided to go with Ryudomon for the newest Digimon. Then moving along, we just continue to beat everything up in the area, and in so doing, Kabuterimon became max level as well. So we were on the precipice of getting our second ultimate, which at this point we have more than enough memory for. Memory in the Nuzlocke run almost never became a problem at any point. This was really a time, and again, I try to stick my Digimon along the same data types. So keeping him vaccine, the real only option was Mega Kabuterimon. Once after that, you move on, find the people around, you find the Eater who evolves, into the new humanoid form that you're going to see a couple times more throughout the run. Now you move on to fight these new Eaters, which are a little tougher than their predecessors. They're got a bit more health, they got more annoying moves, such as the texture blow that apply dot to your Digimon. Their signature ability, again, instead of a road terminal, melt processor there, but it still can really hurt. So you do have to keep your Digimon topped off, or else there will be some danger there. But all in all, they're like most boss fights at this point. They got a lot of health. The reason my Mega Kabuterimon is still only level 1 for this fight, where he would have been really helpful, is I didn't realize this particular dungeon gets cut in half for this fight. I didn't remember that, so I thought I had a whole nother part of the dungeon to go to train him up before getting into this fight. But this is an important part to learn about acceleration boost, even if you do not attack with it, like Aji is doing here. I'm having to fix him. You lose the acceleration boost even if you do not attack. It only lasts for 1 round, whether you actually do the attack or not. So, because he used the buff, you see I'm sitting here guarding, and then Korjamon still almost dies through the guard. So, like I said, these guys can be pretty scary. So, just keep yourself a little aware, but all in all, you should be able to get through without having too much of a scare. And once he's gone, the shift is over as usual. Then you can move on to helping out on the wiki, where someone is messing up with the articles and making them very strange and difficult to read. While wandering through this area, I was able to find Woodmon to become the next Digimon that would be joining our team in many chapters. So, finally hunting down and cornering the Tentomon, who also reached 100% and will be converted later. He is as tough as a rookie should be. 2 hits and he's gone. So absolutely nothing to worry about there from Tentomon. And we won't really talk about this next case on this family-friendly channel. Nothing to see here, everyone. Moving on into the machine as part of this mission, we were able to find Karamon, who reaches 100%, who will also be converted at a later point. And then we come to the Infirmon. Oh boy, the Infirmon. Oh boy, Infirmon. Yep, that's right. A Digimon whose passive is 10% of the time, and he hits you with anything, it's a chance at instant death. So there, 10% chance of death. Anytime he gets a turn, 10% chance of death. Thankfully, we got out of here lucky. The 3 attacks he got off on us, not a single one led to death. So, bringing some death barriers might be an ideal way to deal with him in the future. So going through my rules and trying to figure out names to give some of my Digimon, I decided to name after one of my older viewers who I don't see so often, Jimmy and TT. TT's one who's much more common, though I'm not sure he necessarily likes being a giant dinosaur. And for the final case of the chapter, you move on to helping Arata with the comic. Now, this is important to note. You can now buy HP Spray Cs, but also you can buy the patches. Now, the development patches are nice if you're ever going to actually try to do any development. But that leads us to the end of the chapter, where we begin to discuss our next invasion of Kamishiro. How will that go? Find out next time. See you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.